You know what's funny? The way people think silence means weakness. Oh, they love that assumption, don't they? When you go quiet, they think they've won, think they've finally broken you down to nothing. But here's the beautiful chaos of it all. Silence. Real silence. It's not emptiness. It's a storm brewing, a pressure building, like that moment before lightning strikes. You see, when you stop fighting back, stop trying to prove yourself, that's when God starts moving the pieces on the board. And trust me, He plays a much darker game than any of us. You ever notice how darkness follows light like a loyal servant? Patient, calculated, creeping at the edges while the light blindly flickers on, thinking they're so free, so safe in their little world. That's what's happening right now. While you sit in your silence, they're getting comfortable, showing their true colors, thinking there's no consequences anymore. But oh, the delicious irony of it all. Every mask they drop, every lie they tell, every betrayal they celebrate, it's all being written down in a book they can't erase. You want to know what really terrifies people? It's not the loud ones, not the obvious threats. No. It's the quiet ones who've seen too much, who know too much, who've been through the fire and came out with eyes that can see right through their facades. That's you now. You're becoming their worst nightmare, the one who watches, who remembers, who knows exactly who they are behind their pretty little masks. And here's the punchline that'll really make you laugh. They did this to themselves. Every knife they stuck in your back, every lie they whispered, every time they thought they were so clever in their betrayal, they were just digging their own graves. Because God, oh, He has a twisted sense of humor when it comes to justice. He lets them build their empire of lies, piece by corrupted piece, lets them think they're untouchable, and then, well, then He starts removing the foundations. But here's where it gets really interesting, where the true comedy of human nature shows its face. While you're sitting in your silence, they're getting paranoid. See, they can't stand not knowing what's coming. It's eating them alive, making them jump at shadows, seeing threats in every corner. They're starting to make mistakes, big ones. The kind that can't be covered up, can't be explained away. And the best part, the absolute best part, you don't have to do anything. Just watch, stay quiet. Let them destroy themselves with their own fear, their own guilt, their own desperate attempts to maintain control. It's like watching a group of rats trapped in a maze, turning on each other when the food runs out. They're so busy watching you, waiting for your next move, that they don't even notice the noose tightening around their own necks. Remember when they thought they had all the power? When they stood there, smug and satisfied, thinking they'd written the final chapter of your story? Oh, what a joke that was. Because while they were busy celebrating your silence, God was busy writing a whole new book. And in this version, your silence isn't your weakness. It's your weapon. Every quiet moment is another brick in their prison, another thread in their web, another step closer to their inevitable exposure. You see, there's a certain type of darkness that comes with understanding this truth. A beautiful, terrible knowledge that changes everything. When you realize that your pain, your betrayal, your forced silence, it wasn't the end of your story. It was just God setting the stage for something much, much bigger. They think they know pain, think they understand what it means to suffer. But they've only played in the shallow end of that pool. You, You've been to the depths. You've seen the kind of darkness that changes a person, that strips away all the pretense and leaves something new, something they couldn't possibly comprehend. And now, as you sit in your silence, as you watch them dance and play their little games, you're becoming something they never saw coming. Something that doesn't need words to make them feel the weight of their actions. Your very existence is becoming their punishment, a constant reminder of what they did, of who they really are. Every time they see you, every time they remember you're still standing, it chips away at their facade just a little bit more. You see, here's what they don't understand about silence. It's not just the absence of noise. It's the presence of something far more powerful. It's the space where God does his most devastating work. Every moment you stay quiet, you're giving him more room to move, more space to arrange their downfall. And he's thorough, oh, so thorough. He doesn't just expose their lies. He reveals the truth piece by wicked piece, like shadows retreating at dawn, leaving their souls naked and exposed in the merciless light of day. They thought silence would break you, but instead, it's breaking them. Every day they wake up wondering if today's the day their masks finally crack, if today's the day their carefully constructed lies come tumbling down. And here's the truth they're too afraid to face. God doesn't need their permission to expose them. He doesn't need their cooperation to bring their darkness into the light. All he needs is your patience, your silence, your willingness to stand still and watch as their carefully constructed world starts to crumble. Because that's the real power play here. Not in shouting, not in fighting, not in trying to prove anything to anyone. The real power is in knowing that their exposure is inevitable, that their true faces will be revealed, and that all you have to do is wait. Wait and watch as God turns their own weapons against them, as he uses their own pride, their own arrogance, their own sense of invulnerability to bring them down. It's a beautiful thing, really, watching justice unfold in slow motion, watching as every lie they told, every person they hurt, every bit of darkness they thought they could hide, comes rising to the surface like bodies in a flood. And you just get to sit back and watch the show, knowing that your silence was just the calm before their storm. Let me tell you something about human nature, about the intricate dance between truth and time. When people betray you, when they reveal what lies beneath their masks, they hand you an unexpected gift, the ability to see through every carefully constructed illusion. It's like watching a play where you've suddenly gained access to see behind the curtain, where every staged smile, every rehearsed word, every calculated gesture becomes transparent. You start to understand how time itself becomes the greatest revealer of truth. Every season that passes strips away another layer of pretense, until what remains is nothing but the raw reality they tried so desperately to hide. It's like watching a grand illusion slowly fall apart, as each passing moment brings another crack in their carefully constructed facades. You know what's fascinating about patience? It's like holding a mirror up to people's true nature. The longer you wait, the clearer their reflection becomes. Every moment of restraint on your part is another opportunity for them to reveal who they really are. It's in these extended moments of observation that you start to understand the real game being played. Not the one they think they're winning, but the one they don't even realize they're losing. They perform their roles with such conviction, reaching for achievements built on foundations of deception. But time has a way of eroding even the most carefully constructed lies, revealing the hollow spaces where truth should have been. There's a certain poetry in watching reality unfold itself, isn't there? While you remain in your composed silence, they're out there, unknowingly, writing their own exposé. Every move they make, thinking they're further covering their tracks, only serves to highlight the path of deception they've walked. It's like watching someone trying to erase footprints in sand while the tide slowly rises, inevitable, unstoppable, revealing. Your patience becomes the lens through which their true nature comes into focus, every action they take becoming another piece of evidence they can't erase. Have you ever noticed how guilt manifests in those who think they're beyond consequences? It seeps into their voices, taints their laughter with a nervous edge, makes their boasts sound hollow even to their own ears. That's what's happening now. Your composed silence becomes the blank canvas upon which they paint their own undoing. Because in the absence of your reaction, in the void of your response, they're forced to confront the echoes of their own actions. It's fascinating, really, watching how the weight of their own choices becomes the very thing that begins to break them. Think about the masterful irony of it all. They mistook your silence for surrender, your patience for weakness. But in reality, every moment you remain still is another moment their masks slip just a little further. It's like watching time-lapse photography of a facade crumbling, too slow to notice in any single moment, but undeniable when you step back and observe the progression. Their confidence begins to crack. Their certainty starts to waver. And in those moments of doubt, their true nature seeps through like water finding its way through stone. But here's where human nature shows its most revealing patterns. In their growing unease, they begin to turn inward, then against each other. That's the thing about people who build their relationships on shifting sands of deception. When the ground begins to move, they lose all sense of stability. Every uncertain glance becomes a potential threat. Every whispered conversation carries the weight of possible exposure. They start to realize that the bonds they thought were unshakable were actually just chains of mutual compromise, ready to break at the first sign of pressure. Watch how their alliances begin to fracture, how their united front starts to show signs of strain. It's like observing a complex machine slowly breaking down. At first, just a subtle vibration, a barely noticeable tremor. But as time passes, as your silence continues to work its patient magic, those small irregularities grow into unmistakable malfunctions. They begin to question each other, doubt each other, fear each other. The very network of relationships they built to protect themselves becomes the web that entangles them. This is the true power of patient observation, not in what it demands, but in what it reveals. Every moment you maintain your composure is another moment they're forced to sustain their performance. And no one, no matter how practiced in deception, can maintain a false front indefinitely. Time has a way of wearing down pretense, of revealing what lies beneath the surface. It's like watching a master illusionist's tricks in slow motion. Eventually, you see exactly how the deception is constructed. And once seen, it can never be unseen. They're beginning to understand, though they'd never admit it, that the greatest threat to their carefully constructed world isn't your actions. It's their own inability to maintain the illusion in the face of unwavering patience.